Hello again, folks. Mark Merrill with Firm. Today on the Fact Files, it's the Fed's demands on Mills. The Maine Democratic Party keeps on denying the existence of any language under federal Title IX law that bans transgender men from competing in girls' or women's sports athletics. Now, before we continue with our introduction, folks, the latest news from April 14th is that the Mills administration has outright denied and will not accept terms of Title IX legislation under the federal law. As described in previous episodes here, you already know about it, folks. So the information I'm about to proceed with from the Attorney General from the state of Maine in a letter is that the state of Maine's federal funding for Title IX athletics for women's sports is now being referred to the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi for initial action to stop all federal funds to the state of Maine. It will affect all schools in the state of Maine. No thanks to Janet Mills. This is not a blame on the Trump administration at all, as Janet Mills would like to have it. She's been all over social media, blaming, pointing fingers, almost to the point of actual insinuation, and the fact that Trump should be punished for attempting to force the state of Maine into losing federal funding. It's not about Donald Trump. It's all about hate by him, by Janet Mills, and all of her cronies, Speaker of the House Ryan Fecteau, Speaker of the Senate, President of the Maine Senate Troy Jackson, all the leadership, probably even Sarah Gideon, even though she's no longer in a leadership position. It's all about hate. That's all it is, folks. Pure, unadulterated hate. It's more than political. This has got to stop. So moving on, folks, trouble is that there doesn't need to be specific language when Title IX was first passed in the early 1970s. So here's the recent April 11th letter. We'll read to you from Maine Attorney General Aaron Frey, you see here, sent by Maine Assistant Attorney General Sarah Forster to the United States Regional Director Bradley Burke in Washington, D.C. He represents the United States Office of Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education. The subject is titled Response to Impasse Letter. Put it mildly, I suppose. Directed Investigation number 01255-902, Department of Education, State of Maine. Ready? Here it is. April 11th, Bradley Burks, addressed to Bradley Burks, Regional Director, Office of Civil Rights, U.S. Department of Education, sent via email only to Bradley Burke at ed.gov. Regional Director Burke, the Maine Department of Education and the Maine Office of the Attorney General have reviewed the draft resolution agreement and your impasse letter dated March 31st of 2025. We will not sign the resolution agreement, and we do not have revisions to counter-propose. We agree that we are at an impasse. Nothing in Title IX or its implementing regulations prohibits schools from allowing transgender girls and women to participate on girls and women's sports teams. Your letters to date do not cite a single case that so holds. That's their argument. to the contrary. Various federal courts have held that Title IX and/or the Equal Protection Clause require schools to allow such participation. It's got nothing to do with it. You cannot drag another Equal Protection Clause under there to allow transgenders to participate in women's sports when Title IX was clearly written in 1972 to expand varsity sports and even lower grade level sports for girls and women. The NCAA has approved it, but thanks to Frey here and Mills and all her cronies, Maine Principals Association, the MPA, has been forced. Twisted their hand, their arm. You'll obey only the Maine Human Rights Act, according to Janet Mills and Aaron Frey here. That's it! And they point out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 court cases where it was fought. Just to hold up their narrative. Once again, at the end of the letter, the Assistant Attorney General writes, "Your letters, Mr. Burke, of the Office of Civil Rights of the Department of Education, do not cite a single case that so holds. To the contrary, various federal courts have held that Title IX and/or the Equal Protection Clause require schools to allow such participation." Garbage. Sincerely. Signed electronically, Sarah Forster, Assistant Attorney General, Sarah Forster at maine.gov. Copies to Christopher Taub, T-A-U-B, Chief Deputy Attorney General, Kimberly L. Partwardham, Assistant Attorney General, and Pender Macon, State of Maine Commissioner of Education. Now, we've been through this with her already. She's as woke as they come. Now, as far as the Office of Civil Rights, coming right down to it there, folks, we say it again, and we will be brief about it, as we've read it several times on our podcasts here on Firm. Today, we're talking about the Fed's demands on the Mills administration. The Office of Civil Rights of the Department of Health and Human Services at the time was February 25th, writing to inform you, State of Maine, that the Office of Civil Rights issues a notice of violation against the Maine Department of Education. Let's see, February 25th, March 25th, there's 30 days. Let's see, 6 more days is March 31st, so there's 36 days. And here we are now close to April 15th. "51 days. 51 days between the time this letter, February 25th, was issued to Big Bozo Head here and his governor. None of their findings of fact in this letter from DHHS, Office of Civil Rights. Paragraph 3 under fact findings. Last year, in 2024, the Maine Principals Association approved a policy allowing transgender athletes to compete on teams either according to their birth assigned gender or gender identity. Mike Burnham, executive director of the Maine Principals Association, stated, quote, "The executive order, President Trump's executive order 14201, and our Maine State Human Rights Act are in conflict. No kidding. And the Maine Human Rights Association, the Maine State Human Rights Act, and the Maine Principals Association will continue to follow state law as it pertains to gender identity. Based on a review of publicly available data, here's a good one. Back in 2024, Maine Department of Education received funding from the Administration for Community Living totaling $516,000. From the Centers for Disease Control, $99,900. And from the Administration for Children and Families, totaling $87,000. If you contest the accuracy of these awards, please provide an explanation, including any relevant documents. And they refused. Refused! So now, folks, it's time for our gentleman who's been in the trenches right along with Laurel Libby here, House Minority GOP leader. I'm sure you're familiar with Mr. Faulkingham. Here's what he had to say fairly recently on this issue.
Help me change it. To change.
Just one moment, folks. We'll get it correct here for you. Here we are.
My mind is absolutely blown right now. Check out this letter right here.
As we read, folks. As we read.
Our state attorney general, what they're saying in this letter is that there's nothing in Title IX that was written to protect girls, protect their opportunities, and protect their spaces in 1972. They're saying that there's nothing in that stops transgender biological males participating in female sports. This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. I cannot believe that the people in charge of our government, the Democrat majority, who has the governor's office, the Senate, and the House, that have elected this attorney general that's taking this position in defense of the governor, Janet Mills, who has picked this fight with the president, is going to war with the federal government, holding our education dollars hostage to say that Title IX doesn't protect girls. Real story. And they just put it in black and white. Can't believe it. Cannot believe it. Folks, do not let them get away with this. We have to change this state. The state cannot go on like this. Help me change it.
You got it, Mr. Faulkingham. Right to the bitter end. And it'll be the bitter end for them. God help our state of Maine, our people, but especially our children, our women, our girls. Coup d'etat is what's been going on here, folks, ever since Biden took office illegally back in 2021. But, of course, they wanted to have a parting shot to make sure that they could see if they could imprison Trump with the January 6th, 2021 make-believe break-in of the Capitol. Arrest people, throw them in jail. Several Mainers as well, by the way. I don't even know if there's still some left in that godforsaken, awful prison that they're in right now, but they better be released. Mr. Faulkingham Pretty much. Is at his wit's end on this. Not only do we need to have new leadership in this state of Maine, ladies and gentlemen, the criminal justice system needs to get involved. Damn quick! You impeach Janet Mills. You impeach Speaker Fecto. You impeach Senate President Jackson. And impeach or remove appointed, biased, one-sided, LGBTQ bootlicking Attorney General Frey. Yeah, you heard me say it. I'm not afraid. They're human beings. He's in control. It's always been about God. Nobody else. So, what is it about a coup d'etat, folks? Well, it's pretty much spelled right out in the definition of it. We've had it on our program here before on Firm. It is, as you see before you here, a noun. There's also plurals, coup d'etats or coup d'etats. A sudden decisive exercise of force in politics, especially the violent overthrow or alteration of an existing government by a small group. You got that right. Small here, or none here. Not to mention down below. A military coup d'etat of a dictator. Yeah, we might have to get to that point, ladies and gentlemen. It's funny, the Second Amendment hasn't come up during this whole debacle, this whole mess. And now we're going to look again at a brief rundown, ladies and gentlemen, of the pattern of negligence. As probably can see here with our picture of it right here, but we read a little bit of it here about Department of Justice and Pam Bondi, but it's on a separate issue. See, Janet Mills and her cronies have forgotten that there's all kinds of improprieties that they're committing against the people of the state of Maine. You and me, folks, American Maine taxpayers. A negligence or worse, as Maine Republican senators urge Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, to investigate state of Maine finances after Matt Dunlap's state auditor had a devastating audit. Now, this is in no consideration of our media here in Maine. Bangor Daily News comes to mind, first of all, because they're complete liars and covering Janet Mills' rear end. Oh, they weren't fraud. They were just a little bit of misappropriations. Unintentional. Yeah. Misappropriations. The expenditures of the last fiscal year coming to fruition, folks, has been increased by $4 billion from $7 billion to $11 billion under Janet Mills. And guess what? She's also going to hike it another $600 million to $800 million over the next 2 fiscal years. And you know what? She won't even be governor anymore. God help us all. Quick side note here, folks. All Maine news outlets, of course, I was just going over that, but they totally deny the auditor's results. This was for fiscal year 2024. That would have been from the fall of 23 into the midsummer of 2024. There were clear actions of fraud and possible fraudulent mismanagement of taxpayers' funds under the Constitution. But the Bangor Daily News, the fake news, along with the Sentinel, if they even matter anymore, unless they've been birdcage liner for the last 25 years, as far as we're concerned. And the Portland Press Herald down there in Portland, who doesn't give a damn about anybody except themselves when it comes to except Democrats. They deny action by Mills, Frey, Fecteau, and Senate President Jackson of any blame on their part against Maine taxpayers. And the last one we have here, folks, is from the U.S. Department of Education. That's right, United States Department of Education. This was back on March 7th of 2025. Schools, amongst all this other stuff going on, the transgender issue of Title IX, and the state audit of overspending, schools should be focused on learning and DEI portal launched to empower parents. So there is one here, and we're going to give it to you to make sure that you have it so that you can explore it. The U.S. Department of Education launched back then, almost at mid-March, enddei.ed.gov. enddei.ed.gov. A public portal for parents, students, teachers, and a broader community to submit reports of discrimination based on race or sex in publicly funded K-12 schools. The secure portal allows parents to provide an email address, the name of the student's school or district, and details of the concerning practices. The DOE will use submissions as a guide to potential areas for investigation. And finally, a quote from Leader Faulkingham again. He said, "For years, legislative Republicans have stood with parents in calling for schools to focus on teaching their kids practical skills, reading, writing, and math, instead of pushing critical race theory, rogue sex education, and divisive ideologies." You want to decide this fate? This administration, ladies and gentlemen, of the once great state of Maine? All yours. With prayers. Once again, I'm Mark Merrill. This is Firm, Fairness in Reporting Media. We're all about truth, facts, reality, and common sense. Podcasts are here all the time, 24 hours a day. Rumble.com/fairnessmedia1. We require and ask nicely, but we do ask now on a more urgent basis to please contact us by email at fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com, fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com, for ideas and maybe even suggest some websites that we could check out, or some ideas for maybe getting signatures to get these people out of office. As always, stay safe and peace to all of us.